Introduction. He was falsely accused, poisoned, and even buried alive. Everyone believed him to be dead. Who could have imagined that he would rise again? If anyone in this world slanders me, deceives me, insults me, mocks me, belittles me, or scorns me, I shall raise my sword and slay them. Chapter 1. After the night of deception. Chu Fan, what on earth did you do to me last night? I am your father's woman. You beast! How could you drug your 6 years older stepmother and commit such an atrocious act? Have you considered your comatose father while doing this? Truly, the world has fallen into disgrace, tarnishing the reputation of the Chu family. Amidst the darkness, countless voices of accusation and screams echoed in Chu Fan's consciousness, reverberating like a nightmare. Splash! Frigid water splashed onto his face, jolting Chu Fan back to awareness. He opened his eyes and surveyed his surroundings. On either side loomed cold, damp walls devoid of light, save for flickering candles that threatened to extinguish at any moment. This was a secret chamber, and surrounding him stood dozens of individuals, all members of the Chu family. Their disdainful and contemptuous gazes pierced through him like needles, prompting him to shut his eyes in anguish. His mother had tragically passed away during childbirth, and his father, under familial pressure, remarried a woman named Yumeiyun. Yumeiyun treated Chu Fan with kindness and often showed concern for him, attempting to fill the void left by his late mother. Such a woman was rare, and Chu Fan genuinely regarded Yumeiyun as his mother. However, just days prior, his father had suffered a mysterious car accident, leaving him in a comatose state. Xiao Fan, your father has fallen. Many within the family are envious of his shares. You could be in danger. What shall we do? Listen to me, bring me the company documents and share agreements, and I will transfer them to your name. All right, I've brought them, but what are you doing, mother? After that, darkness enveloped him, and upon awakening, Yumeiyun lay beside him, disheveled. I have been deceived. Chu Fan mocked himself with a bitter smile, yet his teeth were clenched tight. Yumeiyun's previous demeanor as a virtuous wife and mother had merely been a facade to secure his father's shares. As for the heinous crime of drugging his stepmother, it was all part of their elaborate scheme. Pain, excruciating, soul-wrenching pain, hatred, a hatred that cut deep into his very being. Even now, Chu Fan vividly recalled Yumeiyun's mocking smile as she lay atop him, and the chilling expression on his uncle Chu Hai's face as he entered at the perfect moment. Chu Fan felt as though he had lost all sensation. His gums bled from the pressure of his biting down, yet he remained oblivious. Chu Fan, how dare you commit such an atrocious act? Do you have anything to say? A middle-aged man glimmered with cold malice in his eyes, his voice devoid of warmth. He was Chu Fan's uncle, Chu Hai. At that moment, he looked down upon Chu Fan from a position of authority. Beside him stood a voluptuous young woman, her arms affectionately entwined with Chu Hai's none other than Yumeiyun. However, a frigid smile graced her face as she uttered, Chu Fan, I must have been blind to have raised such a beast. You are just like your father, both utterly worthless. What did you say? Upon hearing Yumeiyun's words, Chu Fan's eyes instantly filled with blood, his voice deep and menacing, akin to a beast poised to pounce. I said, you and your father are both worthless. Yumeiyun exclaimed with malicious glee. Did you really think I like your father? If it weren't for Brother Hai instructing me to get close to you and your father to seize his shares, I would be repulsed to see the two of you. Well, now those shares belong to Brother Hai, who is the true master of the Chu family. As for you and your father, you can fend for yourselves, ha ha ha. Yumeiyun erupted into laughter. As if recalling something, she added, all right, I should mention, your sister Chu Qian seems to have been captured by the black bear from the underworld. She will likely be sold off soon. Your family won't taste happiness. What? Little Qian too. In an instant, Chu Fan's eyes seemed to burst with fury as he leapt from the ground, tackling Yumeiyun and viciously grasping her throat. Wretched woman, I will kill you. Chu Qian was an orphan adopted by his father and was not related to Chu Fan by blood. However, she was sweet and beautiful, and Chu Fan treated her as his own sister. Brother Hai, save me. This beast has gone mad. Yumeiyun struggled violently, but Chu Fan's grip tightened mercilessly, causing her face to flush as she struggled to breathe. Chu Hao, Chu Biao, Chu Fei, Chu Hai signaled. Yes, master. Immediately, 3 robust young men approached, licking their lips, each taking hold of one of Chu Fan's arms and pulling him away from Yumeiyun. How dare you choke me? Once upright, Yumeiyun let out a piercing scream and raised her hand. Slap! A clear handprint appeared on Chu Fan's face. He spat out blood, but, paradoxically, became calm. He coldly gazed at Yumeiyun and Chu Hai. You'd better kill me this time, or I will make you regret ever coming into this world. Hearing Chu Fan's maniacal words, Chu Hai glanced at Chu Biao and the others, his expression darkening. Don't kill him. With that, he turned to leave, and Yu Meiyan followed suit. Soon, the dimly lit chamber was left with only the three brothers, Chu Hao, Chu Biao, and Chu Fei, who regarded Chu Fan with ill intent. Chu Hai's command not to kill had already indicated their stance. Chu Biao, the eldest, suddenly landed a punch on Chu Fan's abdomen. You worthless trash. How dare you choke someone? Instantly, a jolt of pain surged through Chu Fan's belly, leaving him feeling as though he were tossed in a tempest, rendering him speechless. Chu Biao was poised to continue his assault when the second brother, Chu Hao, intervened. Brother, why waste energy punching him? I have something more direct. Saying this, he produced a vial of medicine and flashed a grin at Chu Biao. What is that? Hith hith. Chu Hao whispered something into Chu Biao's ear, causing his expression to shift dramatically. You're quite devious very well. Let's use this. Fei. Pry his mouth open for me. Got it. With a smile, Chu Fei grasped Chu Fan's mouth, and then Chu Biao placed a pill into it. In an instant, Chu Fan's eyes widened in agony, as if he were suffering from some torment, and he collapsed to the ground, coughing violently. Trash. Weren't you so formidable before? Now, you're nothing but a dead dog. Not only that, but they also surrounded Chu Fan, kicking him relentlessly. Poof! Suddenly, Chu Fan spat out blood, and blood also streamed from his eyes, nose, and ears. What is happening? The unexpected turn of events left the three brothers astonished. Chu Hao's face was also filled with horror. I used a minimal dose of poison. It shouldn't kill him. Why does he look as if he's on the brink of death? The room fell into a suffocating silence, and the expressions of the three brothers changed simultaneously, a flicker of unnatural fear passing through their eyes. Was it switched? Chu Biao's face darkened. Chu Hao, who else knows about this matter? No one. I haven't told anyone. Chu Hao's complexion also turned grim. That's good. After a moment of contemplation, Chu Biao said, You two clean up. I will report to the family head, stating that this brat's frail constitution led to an unfortunate accident. Understood. Listening to Chu Biao's words, the two finally exhaled in relief. That night, dark clouds rolled ominously, thunder and lightning clashed, and it seemed as if the heavens had torn open, unleashing a torrential downpour. The three brothers carried the still bleeding Chu Fan to a desolate graveyard on the outskirts. The family head instructed to be thorough, so let's choose this spot, Chu Biao remarked. Agreed. Chu Hao and Chu Fei nodded and began to dig a grave. You guys. Chu Fan watched helplessly, attempting to voice something, but was interrupted by another spurt of blood. Chu Biao sneered, Kid, it's just your bad luck. Don't hold a grudge against us, even in death. With that, he tossed Chu Fan into the pit and began to cover him with dirt. Chu Fan shouted defiantly with all his strength, but soon was buried beneath the earth. All right, let's go. The three brothers exchanged glances and departed under the shelter of an umbrella. However, not long after their departure, a lightning bolt, shaped like a sword, struck precisely upon Chu Fan's grave. Boom! The electric light shattered the soil, coursing over Chu Fan's body. Swish! In an instant, Chu Fan opened his eyes. The moment he opened them, countless images were imprinted within his pupils. He beheld another brutal world, where weapons reigned supreme, and swords were the pinnacle of all arms. He witnessed a sword immortal clad in white, besieged by many, the skies stained with blood. He also saw the white-clad sword immortal unleash a beam of sword light, causing the downfall of millions. Yet, in the end, everything was reduced to ashes. Only the soul of a sword, hidden within the lightning, fused into Chu Fan's body. Streams of domineering sword intent coursed through Chu Fan, sharpening his gaze. At that moment, he was as sharp as a drawn blade. The pain vanished, and a hand emerged from the soil. That I have returned. The heavy rain continued to patter softly, as Chu Biao and his companions swiftly retraced their steps under the shelter of their umbrellas. For reasons unknown, each of the three brothers wore an expression of unease. Eldest brother, is it true that Chu Fan is really dead? Chu Fei inquired anxiously. Of course, Chu Biao exclaimed, delivering a sharp slap to Chu Fei's head, berating him. Did you not personally bury him alongside Chu Hao? While that may be the case, I cannot shake off this ominous premonition. Rustle. The sound abruptly ceased as they heard footsteps approaching from behind. In this desolate graveyard, compounded by the midnight thunderstorm, their nerves were taut at the slightest rustle. Who is there? Chu Biao shouted fiercely, spinning around, only to be met with a sense of dread. A shadow loomed behind them. Rain-soaked hair clung messily to the figure's face, yet it could not conceal the murderous glint in their eyes. Chu Fan, you are alive? The three men felt as though they were facing a formidable foe, their pupils widening in shock. Chapter 2. Don't move, it's a robbery. How could it not be chilling? How could a person, poisoned and buried alive, possibly come back to life? It was inconceivable. I personally fed you the poison. It was they who buried you with their own hands. How could you possibly survive? Chu Biao's expression fluctuated, and his tone grew increasingly apprehensive. Chu Hao and Chu Fei exchanged incredulous glances with the man before them, instinctively taking a step back. They racked their brains, but could not fathom how Chu Fan had turned danger into safety. In response, Chu Fan erupted into laughter. Ha ha! It was a wild, unrestrained laugh, as if he intended to release years of suppressed humiliation in one fell swoop. Heaven itself seemed to comprehend Chu Fan's intent. The wind picked up, the rain turned frigid, and lightning streaked across the sky, accompanied by thunderous roars. Power! He had attained the strength he had long yearned for. He was no longer the feeble, humiliated being he once was. I warned you, if you do not kill me this time, I will make you regret ever being born into this world. Chu Fan slowly approached the Chu brothers, his voice chillingly cold. You are merely the beginning. Upon hearing Chu Fan's words, the three brothers felt less fear. He was human, not a ghost. What was there to fear? Chu Biao scoffed coldly. Chu Fan, though I know not how you survived, you dared to pursue us. Do you truly wish for revenge? The eldest brother urged. Why waste words with him? Just kill him. The brothers spoke with unwavering confidence. They were strong, armed, and outnumbered. Killing a single person would be an effortless task. However, Chu Fan merely smiled derisively. Why not give a try? As soon as the words left his lips, a blade of sword energy coalesced at his fingertips. Kill him. The three brandished sharp daggers, lunging toward Chu Fan's chest. Heh. Chu Fan's face retained its mocking smile. With a flick of his finger, the sword energy surged toward Chu Fei and Chu Hao. Thud! The two froze in place. Their daggers inexplicably severed in two. Their heads soared into the air, blood gushing forth, only to be washed away by the rain. In death, their eyes remained wide open, filled with terror. You! Chu Biao's form abruptly halted, his eyes widening in horror. He comprehended what had transpired behind him, but dared not turn a look. A chilling cold enveloped him, as if the very air had been siphoned away, his heart ceasing to beat. It felt as though he had been cast into another dimension. Devoid of sound, terror expanded infinitely. It is your turn. The voice of Chu Fan echoed, ghostly and ominous. Swish! In the next instant, another blade of sword energy sliced through the air. You! Chu Biao's pupils dilated, desperate to utter something. Yet, no matter how his throat twisted, not a single word escaped his lips, for he too had been decapitated. Chu Fan observed the scene with indifference, coldly stating, There is no need for you to die with your eyes wide open. You Mei Yun, Chu Hai, and the others will soon join you. With that, he pointed at Chu Biao's severed head, delving into his memories. He sought to uncover the whereabouts of his sister, Chu Qian, who had been taken by a black bear. After a brief moment, Chu Fan rose and gazed intently toward the northwest. The dock, how they truly wished to sell my sister. A chill swept through his eyes, and a surge of murderous intent filled his heart. After ensuring the scene was adequately managed, he hurried toward the dock. In the Chu family's living room, Chu Hai, Yu Meiyun, and several others awaited the return of the Chu Biao trio. However, as time ticked by, the three had yet to return. Yu Meiyun, clutching Chu Hai's arm, voiced her concerns. With such torrential rain outside, could something have happened? Certainly not, Chu Hai replied calmly. Though the car accident did not claim Chu Fan's life, it inflicted considerable injuries on him. He has only just recovered. How could he possibly match the prowess of the Chu Biao trio? Tonight, Chu Fan is undoubtedly doomed. Yet, they have been gone for quite some time. Unsettled, Yu Meiyun suggested, perhaps you should send someone to check again. After a moment's contemplation, Chu Hai nodded in agreement and instructed several individuals to investigate the mass grave site. The mass grave was a notorious location for foul play. often chosen by those wishing to conceal a body. Before long, the scouts returned, reporting, "We did not find the Chu Biao trio." "What?" "Chu Hai's hut sang." And he rose abruptly, his expression grave. "Then what a Chu fan. Neither did we see him." Chu Hai's countenance shifted rapidly between hope and despair, and he slammed his hand upon the table, exclaiming, "You must hurry to the Black Bear's location. Better to err on the side of caution than to regret it." Northwest, at the dock warehouse, a group of tattooed men sat together, exhaling smoke as if awaiting someone. At the forefront was a burly, muscular-bald man, his dark skin reminiscent of a black bear. Minutes later, a ship slowly docked, and a rotund man disembarked, his features round and his ears prominent. Accompanying him was a bodyguard, who carried a suitcase. "Black brother, here is 1 million. Where's the cargo?" The plump man inquired with a grin. The black bear immediately welcomed him with a smile, accepting the suitcase and gesturing toward a corner. "It's right here. This one is a novice. I assure you will find her to your liking." In the corner, a ragged girl huddled, trembling at the sound of their conversation. She was fair of face, with strikingly large eyes that resembled black jewels, now streaming with tears. "Brother Chu Fan, I am so sorry. It seems I will no longer be able to accompany you." Her shoulders shook as she wept, her small face adorned with glistening tears. Upon seeing Chu Qian, the rotund boss's eyes sparkled with delight as he nodded repeatedly. "Indeed, she is quite the catch. This quality far surpasses the previous ones." Chu Qian's tattered clothing revealed extensive patches of her fair skin, and her tear-streaked visage stirred profound excitement within the boss. "Quick, take her away, aboard the ship." At that moment, 2 bodyguards were hurled backward, crashing violently against the dock's wall, their fates uncertain. Following this, a young man in his 20s approached, his gaze icy. "Chu Fan, is that you?" The black bear's eyes twitched violently. Had this fellow not been killed? How could he still be alive and even stronger? "Brother Chu Fan." Upon seeing the newcomer, Chu Qian's body shuddered, and she was about to rush out, only to be knocked unconscious by the rotund boss. "What is happening?" The chubby boss, his expression grim, interrogated the black bear. "Did you not assure me that there would be no unforeseen incidents?" "Do not worry. He is merely a worthless wretch without any backing." The black bear gradually regained his composure, his voice frigid. "I had long arranged for his father, Chu Tianxiong, to be turned into a vegetable. His stepmother is also one of ours. The Chu family has long since changed hands. What storm can he possibly stir up alone? So that is the case." Upon hearing this, the rotund boss visibly relaxed. "Is that so?" Chu Fan's face was as calm as an ancient well, utterly devoid of emotion. Sword energy coiled around his fingertips, transforming into a sharp long sword. As Chu Fan grasped the sword, his entire demeanor shifted dramatically, exuding an aura that surged to the heavens. "Ah, he even brought a weapon." The black bear scoffed derisively, seizing a hefty cleaver from nearby, grinning malevolently. "Kid, this he has claimed many corpses. One more or one less makes no difference." "Kill him," ordered the rotund boss. Instantly, dozens of men charged at Chu Fan, surrounding him. Chu Fan remained silent, his gaze fixed unwaveringly on Chu Qian in the warehouse, completely disregarding the thugs and bodyguards. As those men approached, Chu Fan slowly raised his hand. With a sweeping motion of the long sword, some were decapitated, others cleaved in half, and yet others split down the middle. In an instant, the entire dock fell eerily silent as all who had been standing collapsed. With an expression still cold, Chu Fan disposed of the bodies in the sea before finally reaching Chu Qian's side. Chu Qian lay unconscious, mumbling, "No, do not harm Brother Chu Fan." The indifference in Chu Fan's eyes gradually melted away, replaced by warmth. "Silly girl." He hoisted Chu Qian onto his back and suddenly felt a stirring in his spirit. After merging with the sword's soul, his senses heightened significantly. He sensed several vehicles approaching. The Chu family. Chu Fan's gaze turned icy as he swiftly departed with Chu Qian on his back. "I currently possess only the first level of sword soul cultivation. Though I have undergone a transformation, bullets can still harm me. I must bide my time. The Chu family will eventually meet its demise." 3 days later, Chu Fan rented a modest apartment in the old District 3 and settled down with Chu Qian. The Chu family would surely send someone to find him, and during this time, he needed to grow stronger. However, the first issue to resolve was finances. The rent money was scavenged from the clothes of the Black Bear and his ilk, totaling a mere 30,000. As for the 100,000 from the rotund boss, the amount was too substantial and in cash, making it easily suspicious. Chu Fan had simply tossed it into the sea. He still required a stable job. So Chu Fan took up an unassuming position as a driver. This provided him with freedom and allowed him to keep a constant watch on the movements of his father's hospital. As night descended, Chu Fan, who was working the night shift, drove his taxi with keen vigilance, always on the lookout for potential passengers along the roadside. Suddenly, a slender and strikingly beautiful woman rushed out from around the corner in a state of panic. Chu Fan promptly halted his vehicle and opened the door for her, inquiring, "Where would you like to go, miss?" Before he could finish his sentence, the enchanting woman swiftly entered the car and slammed the door shut with force. To his astonishment, she brandished a gleaming fruit knife, pressing it against his neck as she menacingly declared, "Don't move. This is a robbery." Chapter 3. A drag on progress. The atmosphere momentarily stiffened, accompanied by an air of awkwardness. Chu Fan regained his senses, finding it somewhat amusing. "Miss, are you attempting to rob me? Is that not permissible?" Su Yingqian's voice trembled slightly, her small hand gripping the fruit knife, quivering as well. Clearly, this was her inaugural attempt at robbery. Otherwise, she wouldn't display such a lack of professionalism. Chu Fan scrutinized her, a heart-shaped face, phoenix eyes, at first glance. She appeared to be a beautiful girl, yet at this moment, she was struggling to present herself as fearsome, glaring at Chu Fan with a knife. "Hand over all your money, or I shall kill you." Listening to Su Yingqian's words, Chu Fan furrowed his brow and remarked, "Miss, judging by your attire, you do not appear to be impoverished. Why resort to robbery?" For a fleeting moment, Su Yingqian looked flustered, but she quickly regained her composure. "What does that have to do with you? Just give me the money." As she spoke, she pretended to press the knife down menacingly. Chu Fan genuinely feared that she might accidentally harm him, so he reluctantly retrieved his wallet and handed her 100 yuan. "This is all I have." Instantly, Su Yingqian's beautiful eyes widened in disbelief. "Only 100? With an expression devoid of emotion, Chu Fan replied, "I am a driver, and today marks my first day on the job. Naturally, I possess little money." This was the truth. All the money he had acquired was stored in his rented accommodation for daily expenses, leaving him with only this 100 yuan on his person. Not even wanting his 100 yuan, Su Yingqian, now agitated with the fruit knife in hand, murmured to herself, "What am I to do if I cannot gather the money?" Observing her distress, Chu Fan inquired, "Have you encountered some trouble?" Su Yingqian remained silent, yet her wandering gaze betrayed her. In truth, Chu Fan had noticed from the start that while she spoke of robbery, her eyes were clear and filled with urgency and concern. Furthermore, her elegant and proud attire suggested that she hailed from a wealthy family. Such a person would hardly resort to robbery. "Put down the knife and tell me what is truly the matter. Your weapon does not intimidate me," Chu Fan stated calmly, gazing at Su Yingqian. She glanced at his composed demeanor and then at the fruit knife in her hand, ultimately deciding to relinquish it. In the next moment, her eyes brimmed with tears, and she bit down on her lip. "My name is Su Yingqian. My sister has been kidnapped, and the captors demand 5 million. I do not have that much." "Kidnapping?" Chu Fan's expression shifted, his demeanor cooling slightly. He could empathize with the anguish of a loved one being abducted, for he had experienced it himself. "Do not panic. Judging by your appearance, you must come from a wealthy family. Surely, 5 million can be gathered?" Chu Fan replied nonchalantly, if it were not necessary. He had no desire to assist this beautiful woman. Due to the ancient sword spirit within him, Chu Fan's temperament had grown distant, with few things capable of stirring his emotions. Su Yingqian shook her head, stating, "I cannot possibly contact them." "Why not?" Chu Fan furrowed his brow. After a prolonged silence, Su Yingqian gazed at Chu Fan and said, "I must insist that you do not disclose my whereabouts." She leaned closer and whispered something into his ear. "What?" In an instant, Chu Fan's eyelids flickered in surprise as he stared at Su Yingqian. "You ran away to escape marriage?" "Indeed. I have no desire to wed that grotesque pig," she replied, so I sneaked away. However, my family seems quite furious. They have sent people to search for me and even frozen my bank account. Su Ying-chan expressed her anxiety. I'm utterly penniless now, and with my sister in such a predicament. What am I to do? Understanding the gravity of the situation, Chu Fan nodded, a serene smile gracing his face as he inquired, Where's your sister? At Panlong Mountain. Su Ying-chan provided a location, yet she pouted, muttering, What good does that do? Can you actually rescue her? Chu Fan's smile widened. I assure you, I can indeed rescue your sister. Really? Su Ying-chan's eyes sparkled with hope, but it quickly dimmed. But how will you manage that? There are more than 10 of them. Leave that to me. I have my methods, Chu Fan replied cryptically. However, he abruptly shifted his tone, stating flatly, It won't be for free. You will owe me afterward. You heartless person. Su Ying-chan's petite face flushed with anger as she pointed accusingly at Chu Fan. My sister is being kidnapped, and you still demand payment? Chu Fan's demeanor turned cold, his tone indifferent. Why should I risk my safety to save your sister without compensation? She is your sister, not mine. Let's be clear. You. Su Ying-chan's beautiful eyes widened in disbelief. She wished to argue, but found herself at a loss for words. What he said made a certain sense. Without payment. Why should he take the risk? Very well, how much do you want? She asked through gritted teeth. Chu Fan glanced at her and queried, Do you have any money? Su Ying-chan was about to declare her wealth, but the thought of her frozen bank account dashed her confidence. I have no money. That is unfortunate. Chu Fan's subtle mockery felt like an affront to Su Ying-chan, and in a moment of heated impulse, she brandished a fruit knife against his neck. Will you help or not? If you refuse. Before she could finish, Chu Fan smiled lightly and said, Buckle your seatbelt. Why should I buckle my seatbelt? No sooner had the words left her mouth than Chu Fan pressed the accelerator, and the car surged forward as if it had sprouted wings. Su Ying-chan's complexion paled. The speed exceeded her expectations, the engine roaring like thunder, seemingly on the brink of overexertion. She clutched the seatbelt tightly, yet she did not urge Chu Fan to slow down, eager to reach Panlong Mountain as thoughts of her kidnapped sister filled her with urgency. I will ask your sister for the money. You only need to guide me. At such a high speed, Chu Fan maintained a calm tone as he spoke. Startled, Su Ying-chan's eyes widened in shock, and she exclaimed, be careful. Ahead loomed a sharp turn. However, Chu Fan merely cast a fleeting glance at the bend, his gaze unwavering. Contrary to expectations that he would decelerate, he instead pressed the accelerator to the floor, causing the needle on the fuel gauge to rise rapidly as the car accelerated even more. Su Ying-chan screamed repeatedly, terrified, and instinctively tossed aside what she was holding, tightly covering her eyes. In the next moment, Chu Fan abruptly turned the steering wheel, and under the force of centrifugal motion, the vehicle executed an astonishing 90-degree turn. Throughout this entire process, the speed of the car showed no sign of diminishing. Drifting, Su Ying-chan, still reeling from shock, gazed at Chu Fan in disbelief, astonished that such a young driver could master the art of drifting so adeptly. Yet, Chu Fan appeared unfazed, as if he had merely accomplished a trivial task, his eyes fixed ahead. After 5 minutes, Chu Fan brought the car to a halt and calmly addressed Su Ying-chan. Ugh. Su Ying-chan, her face pale, opened the car door and immediately rushed to a corner to vomit. For the first time, she experienced the sensation of leaving the Earth's surface, feeling as if she were weightless. Meanwhile, Chu Fan leaned casually against a tree trunk, waiting for her to regain her composure. After a considerable time, Su Ying-chan finally steadied herself, though her legs still felt weak as she stumbled slightly. Chu Fan retrieved a bottle of mineral water from the car and handed it to Su Ying-chan. Thank you. She accepted the bottle and gulped down the water, feeling somewhat better. Tell me, where are those kidnappers and your sister? Chu Fan in Gui. Su Ying-chan pointed in a direction and said, Over there. Nodding, Chu Fan ascended the mountain, with Su Ying-chan closely trailing behind him, never straying far. After taking a couple of steps, Chu Fan suddenly turned around and asked, Why are you following me? What? Su Ying-chan was momentarily taken aback, then her anger flared. What do you mean? Are you implying that I would hold you back? I assure you, I am quite brave. Just then, a ghostly green flame appeared before them like a specter. 3 seconds later, A woman's scream pierced the air. There's a ghost. Chapter 4. Terrified to the point of endocrine disturbance. The area known as Panlong Mountain was familiar to Chu Fan. It was a graveyard, once a resting place for heroic martyrs. However, due to neglect over the years, it had fallen into disrepair, and coupled with its status as a lawless zone, it had become a favored spot for many to commit murder and dispose of bodies. The most common phenomenon in graveyards was phosphorescence, yet Chu Fan was astonished to discover that Su Yingchen was actually afraid of it. At this moment, she clung tightly to him, her radiant and lovely face buried in his back, her soft form pressing against him completely. It's just phosphorescence, not a ghost. Chu Fan struggled to explain, feeling somewhat exasperated even himself. Su Yingchen snapped back to reality, glancing around. In the pitch darkness, there was no trace of the eerie green flames to be seen. Her face flushed immediately, and she awkwardly attempted to clarify to Chu Fan. It was an accident. Really. I usually have a lot of courage. Chu Fan gave her a look that seemed to say, I'm pretending to believe you, rolling his eyes at her. You can wait in the car. Just stay there until I return. Su Yingchen was not pleased with this suggestion. I'm serious. I'm really capable. I hold a black belt in Taekwondo. Ignoring her, Chu Fan furrowed his brow deeply. He realized a rather grave issue. Was it a blessing or a curse to have such a liability along with him? After some contemplation, he ultimately decided against bringing Su Yingchen, this little burden, along. Disregarding her protests, he hoisted her up and placed her firmly in the car. Inciting a storm of furious exclamations from Su Yingchen. Chu Fan, you jerk. If you dare to lock me in, my sister will not let you off the hook. Chu Fan paid her no mind and continued on his way. He was already aware of Su Yingchen's sister and the entire backstory. Su Yingchen was the only daughter of the Su family in Yanjing, but in reality, she had an elder sister, Su Bingxin, who had distanced herself from the family. Su Bingxin, a recent business prodigy, had started with a mere 200,000 and established a company named Lijing International, which specialized in entertainment economics. Within just 4 years, she had developed Lijing International to rival other top-tier entertainment companies. It was common knowledge that Lijing International was on the cusp of going public, with immense potential for future growth, and Su Bingxin had undoubtedly become a rising star in the business world. Although Su Bingxin was known for her ruthless methods and swift actions, she was still a woman, and in certain aspects, women inherently faced disadvantages. On this very night, Su Bingxin had been kidnapped, and shockingly, her abductor was none other than her loyal chauffeur. Who would have imagined that the most trustworthy driver would betray her? The suddenness of the event left Su Yingchen in a daze when she received a call from the perpetrator. The assailant threatened Su Yingchen to procure 5 million for her sister's release, or else face dire consequences. Where could Su Yingchen possibly acquire such a sum? Panic set in. Subsequently, she hastily grabbed a fruit knife to rescue her sister. Chu Fan was well aware of what transpired afterward. Su Yingchen had entered his car and attempted to rob him. With a sigh of resignation, Chu Fan quickly ventured into the depths of Panlong Mountain. As he melded into the darkness, his entire demeanor transformed. If previously he was indifferent, his emotions concealed, now he resembled a sword drawn from its sheath. His face chiseled and angular. In the shadows, his eyes gleamed with the sharpness of a vulture, quickly spotting a dilapidated and abandoned warehouse. From within emanated a woman's cold voice. Zhang Feng, ever since I severed ties with my family, you have followed me. What is your motive? Is it for wealth or power? Despite her initial panic, a calmness soon took over, revealing her as a woman of unwavering resolve. Inside the warehouse, a man's jovial voice responded, President Su, are you genuinely unaware or feigning ignorance? I am neither motivated by money nor power. What else could it be? Following this exchange, silence enveloped the space, no one daring to speak. Su Bingxin lay on the ground, her hands and feet bound, facing an unremarkable man, her driver, Zhang Feng. She recognized her precarious situation, yet she held her head high, exposing her alabaster neck, resembling a proud swan as she gazed at Zhang Feng. You approached me with intent from the very beginning, did you not? Everything has led to this moment. Indeed, President Su, you are astutely perceptive. I took on the role of your driver and bodyguard for this very day. The smile on Zhang Feng's face gradually faded, replaced by a shadow of darkness. Then why do you hesitate to act? The chill on Su Bingxin's already frosty visage intensified, her heart sinking with despair. For years prior, she had distanced herself from the Su family, and while none were willing to accompany her, Zhang Feng remained steadfast, unwavering amidst the betrayal. Su Bingxin had genuinely cared for him, compensating him handsomely, yet she had not anticipated this was merely a trap orchestrated by the Su family. In an instant, despair washed over Su Bingxin. Why the delay? Zhang Feng suddenly erupted in laughter. Because your twin sister has yet to arrive. I intend to resolve this in one fell swoop, leaving no survivors. What? Su Bingxin's pupils constricted, her icy demeanor giving way to panic. Is this also a command from a Su family? No. The order to kill you comes from the Su family. They will not allow you to thrive after breaking away. However, the directive to eliminate Su Yingxun is an additional bounty offered to me. Who? Su Bingxin's gaze bore into Zhang Feng, her tone urgent. I cannot divulge that. Zhang Feng retorted mockingly. However, I can provide you with a hint to ponder. They are in the process of developing a new type of poison, which was purchased 3 days ago. I cannot ascertain its effects, but it is certain that your sister has been marked as a target. Poison? 3 days ago? Outside the warehouse, Chu Fan's eyes turned cold as ice. Su Bingxin fell silent, and after a prolonged moment, she lifted her head, her expression now fraught with anxiety. Zhang Feng, you may take my life, but I beseech you, spare my sister. She is innocent. The lofty and imperious CEO, akin to an unyielding iceberg, is indeed reduced to pleading in such a manner? Zhang Feng observed the expression on Su Bingxin's face and chuckled. Su, are you afraid? You are on the brink of death, and soon your sister will join you. The moment she arrives, I shall take her life as well. Do you have any last words? Speak quickly, for time is fleeting. I wish for your demise. Su Bingxin glared intensely at Zhang Feng, her countenance once again turning frigid. Zhang Feng was momentarily taken aback, then erupted into laughter. Su, I once thought you were different from other women, but it seems I was mistaken. Women, after all, are creatures enamored with fairy tales. It is I who shall perish, and so shall you. Suddenly, with a resounding crash, the warehouse doors were breached by a shadowy figure, and lifeless bodies were flung before Zhang Feng, their faces still etched with terror. Each corpse bore an intricate array of fine, precise wounds, as though they had been struck down by swords in their final moments. Who dares? Zhang Feng's expression shifted dramatically, his wariness directed towards the entrance. A figure emerged, emotionless, stating, I've been listening for quite some time. Your concealment is profound. However, Chu Fan's tone shifted ominously. You, a scoundrel of your ilk, deserve to perish. His voice resonated like the chilling toll of a funeral bell from the depths of the abyss, causing the temperature within the warehouse to plummet. Zhang Feng found himself momentarily daunted by Chu Fan's frigid aura, instinctively retreating a step, feigning composure. Sir, we bear no enmity. Why involve yourself in my affairs? No enmity? Chu Fan replied with a faint, sinister smile, a bloodthirsty curve gracing his lips. Tell me the name of the individual who enlisted your services, where they are, and what they conveyed to you. Comply, and I shall leave your corpse intact. Upon hearing Chu Fan's demand, Zhang Feng's expression darkened. You overstep your bounds. I have yet to settle the score for the assassination of my 12 subordinates, and now you dare to threaten me? With that, he drew a knife from his waist. Lunging forward, his speed was remarkable. The blade aimed directly at Chu Fan's heart. He believed his 12 subordinates had fallen victim to assassination. Engaging in direct confrontation was not necessarily an option for him. Chu Fan, however, remained silent, merely regarding him with indifference. The speed was far too sluggish. With a flick of his fingertip, he unleashed a sword-like energy. In an instant, Zhang Feng felt the ominous presence of an invisible blade hovering above him. Instinctively, he raised his knife in defense. Crack! The blade shattered into 2 pieces, and his head was sent soaring. Without a glance back, Chu Fan continued to extend his finger, probing for memories. Yet, he gleaned no valuable information. Gradually, he turned and approached the now prone Su Bingxin, advancing step by step. Don't come any closer. Su Bingxin's face was pale, her eyes wide with terror as she instinctively recoiled. The preceding scene was utterly unbelievable to her. He had merely pointed, and a living person had perished. A primal fear surged within her, particularly as this individual was a stranger. Suddenly, as if recalling something, she tremulously inquired, "Are you one of them?" Chu Fan remained silent, continuing to approach. "Do not come any closer. Please don't," she pleaded. "I'll give you anything you desire." Su Bingxin could not help but shut her eyes. However, Chu Fan did not harm her. Instead, he merely untied her bonds, reassuring her, "Do not be afraid. I'm a friend of Su Bingxin." Ah! Su Bingxin reopened her eyes, realizing that Chu Fan had stood up once more, regarding her with a peculiar gaze. In an unexpected moment, a rare blush adorned her icy visage. She had thought he intended something sinister, but it was merely to free her from her restraints. "Thank you." She began to express her gratitude, only to suddenly notice Chu Fan still scrutinizing her with that odd look, which ignited a flicker of annoyance within her. "What are you staring at?" "You are bleeding," Chu Fan remarked. "Bleeding?" A sudden wave of pain surged through Su Bingxin's abdomen. She glanced down and was alarmed to see a striking crimson stain. Terrified, she instinctively pressed her legs together, her face ablaze like a fiery cloud. Chu Fan had been so frightening. In her panic, her body had betrayed her. Chapter 5. Price and Demand, gazing at the striking crimson on Su Bingxin's attire. Chu Fan furrowed his brow and inquired, "Are you all right?" As a man, particularly one sensitive to the sight of blood, he was acutely aware of its origin. Su Bingxin, clutching her abdomen, laboriously rose from the ground, her expression marked by discontent. Medical science posits that extreme fright can lead to imbalance. And she had indeed experienced such an episode. The expected timing was mid-month, yet now it was merely the beginning of the month. With an aloof demeanor, she replied, "I'm fine." "Very well, then let us depart." Chu Fan nodded indifferently and turned to leave. "Wait." Su Bingxin opened her mouth to call out. Chu Fan glanced back, a frown resurfacing. "What is it now?" Noticing the impatience in his eyes, Su Bingxin felt a few beads of frustration beat upon her forehead. It was he who had startled her, yet he was prepared to leave without concern. Surely he could at least offer her a tissue? Although dissatisfaction brewed within her, she dared not unleash her anger. After a moment's hesitation, she asked stiffly, "Do you have a tissue?" "Please, hand me one." "I do not." Chu Fan's response was cold. Su Bingxin's expression turned colder still. Observing her displeasure, Chu Fan raised an eyebrow, reflecting that women were indeed troublesome. Approaching a nearby corpse, he made a swift motion, tearing off a fragment of fabric and tossing it beside her. "Here, use this." Su Bingxin's eyes widened in disbelief as she stared at the ragged cloth. Was it truly the case that the president of a prominent company had to resort to such a tattered piece? Chu Fan retorted coolly, "Make do with it. It is all that is available. Otherwise, do without." "You." Su Bingxin seethed, casting several glances of indignation at him. Realizing that her ire would yield no results, she begrudgingly picked up the rag. Just as she was about to wipe, she noticed Chu Fan still gazing at her, and her beautiful eyes turned icy. "What are you still standing there for? Turn around at once." Chu Fan was taken aback for a moment, but quickly regained composure, refraining from further conversation as he exited the warehouse. "That man." Su Bingxin ground her teeth, taking to the task of cleaning with the rag. Chu Fan gradually closed his eyes, attuning himself to the fluctuations of the sword's spirit within him. To his astonishment, he noticed that the color of the sword's spirit had deepened somewhat, and at its core, a vague heart was slowly taking shape. "Sword heart," he muttered to himself. Ever since he had absorbed the entirety of the sword's spirit's memories, Chu Fan had come to understand the method of its cultivation. Ultimately, it boiled down to spiritual energy, necessary for refining the sword's essence and heart. It required the nourishment of blood. The more blood it consumed, the deeper its hue became. However, there was a downside. The sword spirit could influence his temperament, necessitating an outlet for his pent-up emotions. He instinctively glanced towards the window, where he could faintly discern a graceful silhouette. For a fleeting moment, his eyes turned blood-red. Too much bloodshed could lead one to lose themselves. He needed an outlet for his wrath. "Come in," came Su Bingxin's icy voice from within the warehouse. Chu Fan's blood-red pupils returned to their normal state as he pushed the door open and entered. As the door swung open, Chu Fan was momentarily captivated. There exists a certain type of woman whose visage you instantly etch into your memory upon first glance, and Su Bingxin epitomizes such a woman. Previously obscured by her long hair and lying sideways, Chu Fan had not observed her closely. Unlike the youthful Su Yingqian, Su Bingxin exuded an air of maturity. Her elongated legs and ample bosom radiating confidence. Clad in a formal black business suit that accentuated her alluring figure, the ensemble appeared slightly disheveled due to her prolonged confinement. It did not diminish the proud and sophisticated aura she emanated. In that moment, she seemed more approachable, shedding the image of a distant female CEO. Her raven tresses were elegantly coiled atop her head, revealing her alabaster neck, while oversized black glasses perched on her nose enhanced her intellectual beauty. With a flawless physique, an enticing form, and a trace of wisdom in her countenance, it must be said that Su Bingxin was the most exquisite woman Chu Fan had ever encountered. At this moment, Su Bingxin had composed herself, her demeanor dignified. She noticed the intensity of Chu Fan's gaze and could not help but furrow her brow slightly. Yet out of gratitude for his rescue, she refrained from reprimanding him and instead inquired, "Where's my sister? And who are you?" This was an interrogation. Although Chu Fan had saved her, the ruthless nature of his actions had impressed upon her a sense of danger, instinctively categorizing him as a threat. Chu Fan, however, remained unfazed, replying nonchalantly, "She is in the taxi. I am a driver. Take me to her." 5 minutes later, as Chu Fan drove away from Panlong Mountain, the passenger count in his car had doubled. Su Yingqian, seated in the back, erupted in fury. "Chu Fan, you are utterly despicable. How dare you confine me in this car, fearing I might be a nuisance?" "Indeed," Chu Fan replied coolly without turning around. "You, sis, look at this driver. He wants to let me rescue you and shove me into this vehicle. Thankfully, you are unharmed. If anything had happened to you, could he bear the responsibility?" Su Yingqian's tirade was primarily aimed at garnering Su Bingxin's attention and defending her. Yet, when she glanced over, she found Su Bingxin silently observing Chu Fan, her eyes narrowing as she scrutinized him intently. "Sis, I'm speaking to you. Why are you staring at Chu Fan? What is there to admire?" Su Yingqian complained. Chu Fan had long been aware of Su Bingxin's gaze upon him, but chose to remain silent, calmly stating, "Miss Su, you have been saved. It is customary to offer a reward." Upon hearing this, Su Yingqian immediately expressed her discontent. "Money, money, money. You speak of nothing but financial compensation. People who save others do so for altruistic reasons, yet you ask for payment." Chu Fan maintained his indifferent expression. "I am not a saint." While Su Yingqian continued her grievances, Su Bingxin redirected her gaze towards her sister. "What is the situation?" Su Yingqian recounted the entire sequence of events to Su Bingxin, omitting the details of the robbery. "A reward, you say?" Su Bingxin's eyes sparkled with contemplation as she absorbed the unfolding narrative. Chu Fan remained silent, patiently awaiting Su Bingxin to state her price. After a prolonged silence, Su Bingxin finally spoke, inquiring, "Your name is Chu Fan, and you are a taxi driver, correct?" Her gaze scrutinized him, yet there was a hint of something more enigmatic in her eyes. "Yes, I am merely an ordinary taxi driver," Chu Fan replied, squinting slightly. Gradually, the atmosphere within the taxi became charged. "No, you are anything but ordinary. Would an average driver possess such audacity and capability?" Su Bingxin's eyes sparkled with intelligence, her large black irises reflecting the unique light of her lenses, transmitting it into Chu Fan's eyes through the rearview mirror. "What do you wish to convey?" The smile on Chu Fan's face vanished, replaced by a stern expression, and the taxi's speed suddenly surged. "Chu Fan, why are you driving so fast?" Su Yingqian exclaimed, gripping the seatbelt tightly with anxiety. Despite the speed, Su Bingxin's demeanor remained unflappable, revealing her remarkable psychological resilience. She stated directly, "I am in need of a bodyguard." With a sharp turn, Chu Fan deftly maneuvered the steering wheel, executing a graceful arc before bringing the vehicle to a halt. "You wish to hire me as your bodyguard?" He parked the taxi and narrowed his eyes, assessing Su Bingxin in the rearview mirror. Su Yingchun gazed at her sister in disbelief, exclaiming, "Sister, are you truly considering hiring Chu Fan as your bodyguard? You've only known him for a few minutes, even less time than I have." Su Bingxin confidently nodded, "Indeed. I will compensate you for saving my life, and in addition, there will be a fee for protecting my sister and me." "Sister, this is too hasty." Su Yingchun expressed her concern. "Although Zhang Feng betrayed you, you cannot just hire anyone as a bodyguard." Su Bingxin remained silent, awaiting a response. After a few moments of contemplation, Chu Fan exhaled slowly. "Agreed. Name your price." Su Yingchen was utterly perplexed. "Name a price? What price? Isn't a bodyguard typically paid monthly?" However, Su Bingxin quoted a figure that nearly made Su Yingchen leap in shock. 7 million? How can? Before she could finish, Chu Fan coolly interrupted, "Impossible. The fee for saving you is 5 million, and 2 million for protecting you both. Miss Su, do you take me for a fool?" Chu Fan's voice was icy as he declared new sum. 15 million, payment up front. This. Su Bingxin's expression revealed her discomfort. "Let me think." "Think away." Su Bingxin began to ponder. This brusque method of raising the price left Su Yingchun utterly astounded. In her understanding, bodyguards were paid monthly, and the concept of a reward was foreign to her. Moreover, 15 million for a bodyguard? What caliber of bodyguard was that? Yet, her sister had not outright rejected the offer. Instead, she appeared deep in thought, weighing the pros and cons. How could this be? Unbeknownst to Su Yingchen. The depth of Chu Fan's capabilities was beyond her comprehension, but Su Bingxin recognized it, and one could say she was completely captivated. After a prolonged moment of contemplation, she spoke in a chilling tone. 14 million. That is my bottom line. If you nod in agreement, your account will swell by 14 million. If you shake your head, I shall immediately offer you 5 million as a reward, and we shall part ways." Su Yingchen's eyes widened in astonishment. She had anticipated her sister's refusal, yet she was taken aback by her acquiescence. 14 million. Is money simply blown in by the wind? Is it truly that readily given? Chu Fan remained silent for a while before responding. "Very well, but I have a request. I have a younger sister whom I wish to bring over to live with you. You must take responsibility for her daily needs and educational expenses." Su Bingxin's eyes narrowed, and her brows furrowed once again. "Let me think this over." After a considerable pause, her expression darkened as she declared, "I agree." "Sister, you." Su Yingchun was utterly dumbfounded. As Su Bingxin's sister, she was acutely aware of her sister's strong sense of territoriality and her aversion to sharing her living space with strangers. Yet she had agreed. A rare smile graced Chu Fan's face as he replied, "It's a deal." Chapter 6. Flowers amidst cow dung. You have received an income of 14,000,000 yuan on your bank, a construction card ending in XXXX. Soon. Chu Fan received a text message confirming the transfer. Su Bingxin and Su Yingchun had already departed, and the notification arrived an hour after their exit. Before leaving, Su Bingxin provided Chu Fan with an address, instructing him to meet her there the following day, the 88th floor of the International Building. Chu Fan pondered the address and shook his head. He was familiar with this location, situated in the bustling heart of the city's commercial district, where real estate is exceedingly precious. Renting office space in this area demands exorbitant prices, and the International Building stands as a prominent architectural landmark, boasting 108 floors. The Regan International has leased 20 floors, from the 68th to the 88th, making it the building's largest tenant. From her humble beginnings, rising from her family shadows to become a formidable businesswoman, Su Bingxin is undoubtedly a remarkable figure of her generation. Memorizing the address, Chu Fan drove back to the city center, continuing to solicit passengers. He had already resigned from his job, but felt compelled to fulfill his final shift with diligence. As dawn broke, Chu Fan returned to the taxi company to return the vehicle, followed by a breakfast before taking the bus towards the International Building. Having spent the night awake, he felt no trace of fatigue. Rather, he was in excellent spirits, a testament to the vitality bestowed upon him by the presence of the sword soul within. An urgent announcement played on the bus's mobile television. Recently, there has been a surge in reported missing persons. 5 days prior, Another individual had vanished, and here is a description of the missing person. Citizens who spot this individual are urged to contact the following number. Suddenly, a photograph of Chu Fan appeared on the screen. Seeing his own image, Chu Fan smiled faintly. The Chu family had indeed begun to suspect that he was alive and had mobilized their resources to search for him. However, Chu Fan remained unperturbed. Even if they found him, what would it change? Would they dare to confront him? After a few seconds, the broadcast transitioned to other news, and the passengers on the bus paid little heed to the television, engrossed in their own conversations. Beside him, a charming little girl gazed at Chu Fan with wide, curious eyes. In response, he smiled gently and made a gesture for silence. Sure. The girl nodded eagerly. At that moment, a melodious voice called out from nearby. Chio Chio. We've arrived. It's time to get off. Oh, what are you looking at? Oh, nothing. The girl named Chio Chio promptly rose and dashed toward her mother, exclaiming, Mom, where are we going to play later? As she ran, she waved at Chu Fan, her mischievous eyes twinkling, her lips forming a silent farewell. Goodbye, big brother. Chu Fan's smile broadened as he waved back, goodbye. He watched as the little girl and a lovely young woman exited the bus, only retracting his gaze once they had vanished from sight, the smile still lingering on his face. Though he harbored a penchant for violence, at heart, Chu Fan remained a kind soul. Beautiful things could elicit his genuine joy. Ding-ling-ling. At that moment, the phone rang. It was a call from the hospital. A rather impatient female voice inquired. Hello, are you a relative of the patient Chu Tianxiong? The tone of the caller caused Chu Fan to frown slightly, yet he suppressed his rising anger and replied, Yes. What has happened to my father? The woman scolded him harshly. What is going on with you? We agreed that the medical fees would be paid this month, and only then did we arrange for your father to stay in the best ward of the entire hospital. The deadline is fast approaching, and yet you haven't contacted us at all. Are you trying to default on the payment? Listening to her harsh words, Chu Fan's frown deepened. A week ago, his father was hospitalized due to a car accident, and everything had been coordinated by Chu Hai. Little did he expect that in just a few days, his father would be left to fend for himself. If Chu Fan's intuition was correct, this was orchestrated by Chu Hai, as the hospital was a profit-driven institution. Without money, no matter the status, treatment would not be provided. Seeing that Chu Fan remained silent, the hospital staff continued. If you do not pay the medical fees soon, we will no longer be responsible for this patient. Your father's bed has already been moved to the corridor. If you wish for him to continue staying in a ward, bring the money. With that, Chu Fan's expression darkened completely. Is it just about money? I will come and pay this afternoon. Do not move my father's bed to the corridor. You think we will move it just because you say so? The woman disregarded Chu Fan's words, her voice harsh as a crow's caw. The medical fee is 300,000. Without the money, we won't budge. How unfortunate, seeking treatment without funds, wasting so many days of care. She hung up the phone with a string of curses. Setting down the phone, a fierce glint appeared in Chu Fan's eyes as a nameless fury began to brew within him. If anything were to happen to my father, then these vermin have no reason to exist. Ding dong, the announcement of the International Building Station snapped Chu Fan back to reality. Upon alighting, he hurriedly made his way towards the International Building. However, when he arrived, he noticed a charming woman in a black professional outfit waiting at the entrance. Upon seeing Chu Fan, the woman did not approach immediately but scrutinized him with a furrowed brow. His appearance was somewhat passable, yet his attire, a white shirt, tattered jeans, and faded sneakers, all combined, barely amounted to 500. Such an outfit, amidst the throng of elites in the International Building, seemed exceedingly out of place, as if he belonged to an entirely different world. Are you Mr. Chu Fan? The woman asked, somewhat apprehensively. I am, and you are. Observing the woman before him, Chu Fan could not help but frown. All he desired was to meet Su Bingxin swiftly and procure the fund for the medical fees. My surname is Li, and my name is Li Tao. I am secretary to Mr. Su. The woman struggled to divert her gaze from Chu Fan. Her spirit deflated as she turned away, her voice weak and lifeless, as if the world had come to an end. The usually esteemed and authoritative Mr. Su had chosen such a man. In an instant, Li Tao's worldview was shattered. The thought of having waited for this man under the scorching sun for an hour filled her with deep regret. My BB cream, what a waste. Chu Fan maintained an expression of indifference as he said, "Lead the way." Li Tao, suppressing the anger within, guided him to the 88th floor to the CEO's office. The air conditioning hummed softly in the office, where Su Bingxin was engrossed in a document. Without lifting her head upon hearing the door open, she instructed, "Li Tao, you may leave." Understood. Li Tao shot a resentful glance at Chu Fan before closing the door behind her. "What do you require of me?" Chu Fan inquired as he settled before Su Bingxin, his tone unperturbed. Su Bingxin set aside her work and replied coolly, "Although your remuneration has been transferred, the agreement regarding our relationship has yet to be signed. I summoned you today to address this matter." With that, she produced a folder and placed it before Chu Fan. "This contains the bodyguard agreement and my sister's identification information. Please review it carefully. I have no intention of repeating myself." Her tone was brusque, her demeanor embodying the resolute and formidable nature expected of a female CEO. As Chu Fan perused the document, he initially noted Su Ingchen's identification details. She attended Yinhai Middle School, the same institution as his sister, and their ages coincided. A wave of astonishment washed over him, quickly followed by confusion. If this was the essential information about the individual he was to protect, why was there no mention of Su Bingxin herself? He continued reading, and upon encountering a particular clause, his eyebrows arched in surprise. "You want me to protect your sister while also being your boyfriend?" In an instant, his expression morphed into one of incredulity. Was this not an inversion of roles? The ICCEO was proposing to reverse the dynamic with her subordinate? Clarification, Su Bingxin interjected, her gaze radiating a palpable chill. "Finish reading the document first." A minute later, Chu Fan closed the folder, his eyes betraying his disbelief. One clause stood out starkly. Party A, Chu Fan, employed by Party B, Su Bingxin, to provide personal protection for Party B and her sister, while concurrently serving as Party B's boyfriend for a duration of 1 year. Staring at Su Bingxin as if she were mad, he exclaimed, "Have you lost your mind?" Without uttering a word, Su Bingxin swiftly signed the contract, then passed the pen to Chu Fan with a frigid remark, "Your turn." As he took the pen, he cast her a pitying glance before signing. 14 million, along with a complimentary wife. She was indeed unwell, and quite severely so. Chapter 7. Li Tao's secret. As Chu Fan emerged from Su Bingxin's office, he spotted Li Tao standing at the entrance, clad in her uniform, resembling a guardian deity. Perhaps still mulling over her hour-long ordeal under the scorching sun, Li Tao glared at Chu Fan with her large eyes, visibly irked. Chu Fan cast her a disinterested glance before deciding to bypass her and depart. To his surprise, whenever he moved left, Li Tao mirrored his actions, and the same occurred when he shifted to the right. Consequently, Chu Fan furrowed his brow and inquired, "What exactly do you want?" Li Tao remained silent, her gaze fixed on him, exuding an air of fierce determination. Chu Fan's expression darkened slightly as he regarded her quietly. Li Tao's eyes flickered. Perhaps it was merely a trick of the light, but she could have sworn she saw a glint of cold steel in Chu Fan's gaze. This metallic flash was fleeting, for he quickly averted his eyes and remarked, "Rest assured, your skin is quite healthy. The air conditioning in the office may have left it a tad dry, leading to some blemishes. However, standing under the sun for an hour has likely alleviated those." Upon hearing Chu Fan's words, Li Tao's eyes widened in astonishment, her mouth slightly agape. After a moment, noticing Chu Fan's frown, she blurted out, "Moreover, you should avoid wearing bikinis lately, with relatives visiting. It's hard to conceal certain things." Li Tao's eyes turned vacant, and in the next instant, her face flushed crimson. Instinctively, she pressed her legs together and pointed at Chu Fan, indignantly exclaiming, "How do you know that?" "How do I know?" Chu Fan zipped, his silence accompanied by a faint smile. The answer, of course, lay in the sword spirit within him, which, being translucent and connected to his sight, granted him such knowledge. "Isn't it because you stood under the sun for an hour?" He continued, "It appears that a brief exposure to sunlight has not harmed you." Just as he attempted to bypass Li Tao once more, her voice called out from behind him, "Wait!" Turning to glance at her, he noticed her cheeks aflame, her gaze flitting about nervously. She bit her lip and said, "I'm not referring to that matter. I mean, your relationship with the president. You know about that too?" At this revelation, Chu Fan's brow furrowed further. How could Su Bingxin have divulged such information before even moving in? In truth, he had misjudged her. As Su Bingxin's personal secretary, Li Tao was privy to everything, from significant contracts to trivial dietary preferences. The bodyguard agreement drafted by Su Bingxin was printed by Li Tao, who had curiously stolen a glance while doing so. "Of course I know." Li Tao's emotions surged, her face reddening further. Pointing emphatically towards the president's office, she declared, "You cannot marry Su Zong." Be with Su Zong? Why not? This matter does not significantly concern you, does it? Chu Fan's frown deepened. Having accepted a sum of 14 million, it would be unreasonable not to protect her. It is of no consequence. However, Li Tao's face grew increasingly flushed, her voice dwindling to a whisper, her gaze flitting about nervously, occasionally darting towards the president's office where Su Bingxin resided. Chu Fan regarded her with a perplexed expression, pondering whether the women here were all somewhat unhinged. After a prolonged silence, Li Tao chose to cease her utterances altogether, forcefully stomping her high heels against the floor, producing a resounding thud. "You simply cannot be with the president. If you are with her, then what? What am I to do?" Li Tao resolutely declared, particularly emphasizing her final words. Even Chu Fan, with his calm demeanor, felt his expression shift to one of disbelief. He stared wide-eyed at her, his finger twitching at the corner of his mouth. You are implying." Li Tao remained silent, her face reddening like a ripened fruit, her teeth clenched tightly as she cast a jealous glare at Chu Fan, wishing she could devour him whole. Chu Fan felt a surge of discomfort under her scrutinizing gaze. His aloofness and tranquility were utterly obliterated. What was happening? Did she truly harbor feelings for Su Bingxin? Was Su Bingxin even aware of this? Although he was married to Su Bingxin, it was merely a contractual arrangement as her bodyguard, devoid of any emotional ties. Yet whether Li Tao could ascend the ranks was not for Chu Fan to decide. One must consult Su Bingxin. Why not inquire with Ms. Su if she would be open to taking on a concubine? Chu Fan mused, contemplating how to assist Li Tao. It was somewhat pitiable. Their superior-subordinate relationship had been harmonious until the sudden emergence of a rival, which was bound to breed animosity. This inquiry proved to be of little consequence, as Li Tao's lips formed a dejected pout, her demeanor exuding a sense of hopelessness. Clearly, there was no need to ask. It was certain that there was no chance, for Su Bingxin's inclinations remained resolutely conventional. Observing the bitterness in Li Tao's eyes, Chu Fan suppressed a laugh. "Do not despair. Love will come your way, though it may still be under construction. Just remember to wear your hard hat." With that, he stepped into the transparent, circular elevator, ascending gracefully. Just before the doors closed, Li Tao's voice, almost murderous, rang out, "Chu, you better stop right there. I assure you, I will not hesitate to strike you down." With a resounding clap, the elevator doors shut, and under Li Tao's furious gaze, "Chu fan det sendes lao." Meanwhile, on the 108th floor of the International Building, a captivating woman clad in a white business suit stood before a vast floor-to-ceiling window. Her eyes fixated on the unfolding scene, a glass of red wine cradled delicately in her hand as she swirled it gently. After a moment's contemplation, she took a soft sip, a knowing and alluring smile gracing her lips. The dark red of the wine, intertwined with the fiery crimson of her lips, created a visual allure that was simply enchanting. Her cascading wine-red waves of hair and the formal white attire, though ostensibly professional, exuded an undeniable allure, embodying a sense of enticing authority. As the brilliant sunlight streamed in, the woman languidly stretched before retreating back to the sofa, instructing her parched secretary, who had been observing, "Please fetch the list of all visitors to the International Building today." "Yes, boss." The secretary, regaining her composure, hurriedly responded, her heart still racing. The boss possesses the ability to captivate not only men, but also to sway women. Shortly thereafter, the secretary entered the office, holding a list. "Boss, here is the list." The woman responded, instructing the secretary to leave while she perused the document alone. Upon seeing the name Chu Fan, she let out a melodic laugh. Chu Fan's rented accommodation was located in the old district, and it took considerable time to traverse from the bustling city center. By the time Chu Fan arrived at the community, it was already 2 in the afternoon. As he opened the door, he beheld a petite figure bustling about in the kitchen. The kitchen was quite untidy, with corners stained by greasy residue. Yet, the figure remained undeterred, diligently cooking and occasionally coughing lightly, evidently choked by the smoke. "Xiao Qian, why didn't you go to school today?" Chu Fan gently inquired, pushing the door open to reveal the industrious silhouette in the kitchen. Upon hearing his voice, Chu Qian joyfully turned around, her large eyes squinting with delight. "Brother Chu Fan, you're back. These past few days, I've decided to stay home to help you earn money. I already know everything taught at school, so I can cook for you instead." Chu Fan felt a twinge of emotion in his heart. Despite their circumstances, his sister would always stand steadfastly by his side. Nevertheless, he replied, "That's not acceptable. You must attend school. What kind of talk is it to cook at home?" Sticking out her little tongue, Chu Qian responded, I know. You haven't had lunch yet, right? Come and taste the dishes I made for you." As she spoke, she brought the prepared dishes to the dining table. "All right," Chu Fan said with a smile, picking up a piece of meat to savor. "How is it?" Chu Qian asked eagerly, sitting beside him. "Delicio, Chu Fan Ziplit," observing the sweat glistening on her delicate face. "You've been busy for quite some time, haven't you?" Chu Qian's face flushed red as she lowered her head, replying, "Not too long." Chu Fan felt a pang of guilt. Ever since childhood, Chu Qian had been the epitome of beauty. Yet due to her lack of blood relation to the Chu family, she was superficially regarded as his sister while, in truth, she was no different from a maid. Grateful and dutiful, Chu Qian performed household chores without a single complaint, which had led her to neglect her own appearance, even living a fugitive's life alongside him. He sighed softly, gently grasping her hand. "Xiao Qian, there is something I must tell you. We now have money and need not endure our previous hardships any longer." With a clatter, the chopsticks fell to the ground. Chu Qian stared blankly at Chu Fan. "Brother, is this true?" "Indeed," Chu Fan replied with a smile. "We have 14 million. Furthermore, tidy up. We are moving out." "Where to?" Chu Qian asked, astonished. "Come with me to Yinhai Middle School, and you'll find out. But first, we must visit the hospital to see Dad and settle the medical expenses." Chu Fan had no intention of revealing the bodyguard agreement to Chu Qian just yet. Medical expenses? Isn't that Chu Hai's responsibility? Chu Qian's fists tightened with concern. Chu Fan recounted the entire situation to her. Chu Qian's face turned pale with anger. "That ingrate. It's fine. The medical expenses are a minor issue. They will surely pay for their actions." Chu Fan reassured her with a smile. Chu Qian nodded and gestured towards the dishes on the table, saying, "Having money does not permit waste. Let us dine." "Very well. Let us finish everything. With minimal luggage, just a backpack would suffice." After the meal, Chu Fan took his bank card and accompanied Chu Qian to withdraw 500,000. Gazing at the vibrant stack of cash, Chu Qian's eyes brimmed with astonishment. She had never encountered such a vast sum before. "Let's go," Chu Fan said, hailing a cab as they proceeded to the Central City Hospital. Upon arrival, they discovered a throng gathered outside the hospital, murmuring about a young woman at the center. Her head bowed, holding a placard, selling herself to save her mother. Could it be true? 100,000? Such a sum. TSK, look at her figure, her face. Among the crowd were those drawn by curiosity, some inquiring, and others leering at the woman's beauty, yet none extended a helping hand. Chapter 8. Donations? Brother, what is happening there? Chu Qian furrowed her delicate brows, observing the crowd gathered at the entrance. "How are we supposed to get in?" Chu Fan remained composed. "Let us go take a look." Soon, the siblings squeezed into the throng. They witnessed a middle-aged woman in a white coat hastily emerging from the hospital, forcefully grasping the arm of a young woman in the center, who held a sign proclaiming her intent to sell herself for her mother's medical expenses. As she pulled the young woman, her voice brimmed with exasperation. "Fang Yao, we understand that you are raising funds for your mother's surgery, but kneeling at our hospital's entrance with a sign that reads, 'Selling myself to save my mother,' is severely tarnishing our hospital's reputation. Remember, you are no longer an employee here. Why are you clinging to our entrance like a stubborn plaster? Move along. You're obstructing other patients. Surrounding the middle-aged woman were several young nurses, whose comments were far from courteous, laced with biting sarcasm. Undeterred, the young woman, Fang Yao, remained on her knees, tears streaming down her face as she pleaded, "Sister Yin, Ying, please help me. If I can't raise enough money today, my mother's condition will worsen." Her eyes overflowed with tears, her eyelids reddened, as she bit down hard on her lip, oblivious to the pain as her nails dug into her palms. "Help! How can we assist you? You youngsters really have wild imaginations. The surgery costs 100,000. This is not a mere $10. Don't think that just because you've resigned, or even if you hadn't your meager salary of 3,000 a month could ever cover it. Do you really believe that money will fall from the sky?" Sister Yin retorted with a sardonic tone. In the crowd, Chu Fan's expression turned cold. He recognized the voice that had earlier called him, sweet-talking him for the surgical fees. It was her. Chu Qian, filled with compassion, tugged at Chu Fan's sleeve and whispered, "Brother, let us help this sister." Chu Fan nodded lightly. "But Sister Yin, she is my only family. I cannot lose her. I beg you, please help me. I promise to work for you like a horse in the future." Fang Yao continued to choke on her sobs, lowering her sign and bending forward, heavily bowing before Nurse Yin. A gasp swept through the crowd. No one anticipated that Fang Yao would kneel before them to save her mother. Even Nurse Yin appeared slightly moved, clearing her throat and quickly assisting Fang Yao to her feet, her tone softening. "Fang Yao, it's not that I'm criticizing you, but why did you resign? Sun Qing is quite a decent person, and he has money. If you agree to him, 100,000 would be a trivial matter, wouldn't it?" Fang Yao sobbed uncontrollably, her head bowed, tears cascading down her cheeks. Indeed, Fang Yao had once been an intern at this hospital, and Sun Qing, leveraging his father's position as a shareholder, had pursued her with both charm and pressure. Fang Yao, unable to endure the harassment, chose to resign. As for Nurse Yin, she was merely a messenger, persuaded by Sun Qing to convince Fang Yao, but Fang Yao flatly rejected her, inciting the nurse's fury. What is your family background compared to theirs? You rely on a modicum of beauty to elevate yourself above others, pretending to be innocent, and now that there's no money to treat your mother's illness, do you regret it? Yin asked with a mocking grin, her gaze fixed on Fang Yao's name tag. Fang Yao trembled slightly, but thinking of her ailing mother, she nodded through tears. "Whosoever provides you with money, you shall offer your body to them," Yin continued, her smile unwavering. Fang Yao nodded once more, her complexion paling further. "That simplifies matters, conveniently. Sun Qing is in the hospital. I shall summon him immediately." With that, the nurse made a phone call. Tears welled up in Fang Yao's eyes as she hugged herself tightly, curling on the floor, her face a portrait of despair. Moments later, a young man clad in an Armani suit emerged from the hospital, casting a gaze upon the kneeling Fang Yao, his eyes smoldering with desire. "Fang Yao, I hear you are selling yourself?" Sun Qing inquired with a smirk. Fang Yao slowly nodded, her long hair obscuring her face, rendering her expression unreadable. Yet her trembling shoulders betrayed her fear and sorrow. Sun Qing's grin widened at the sight, casting a satisfied glance at Yin. "Oh, Fang Yao, why must you go through this? Had you simply agreed to be my woman earlier, it would have saved us all this trouble." As he spoke, he produced a check. "Here is 100,000. Consider it your purchase price. From now on, you must comply with my wishes." Before he could finish, a paper bag descended from above, landing before Fang Yao. She looked down, her sobs ceasing, her beautiful eyes widening in disbelief. The bag contained a thick stack of cash, an amount surpassing 100,000. A gasp rippled through the onlookers. "What is happening?" All eyes turned toward a pair of young individuals nearby. Chu Fan and Chu Qian exchanged glances before stepping forward to Fang Yao. Trembling, she lifted her gaze, tears still streaking her face, her voice quivering with excitement. "Is this money? For me?" "Indeed. Take it to treat your mother," Chu Fan replied nonchalantly as he turned towards the hospital. A wave of astonishment swept through the crowd once more. "Wow, this guy is incredible, treating 100,000 like mere pocket change. What a deal for a pure and innocent beauty, and yet he seems uninterested in claiming her. You don't understand. This is the pinnacle of sophistication. In an instant, envious and admiring glances converged upon Chu Fan. Hearing the murmurs around him, Sun Qing's expression darkened, and he said sternly, "Buddy, do you dare undermine me and steal my woman?" Chu Fan halted, turning to face Sun Qing with a disdainful smile. "Do you have a problem with that?" Upon hearing those words, Sister Yin and the others were immediately taken aback, their eyes widening in disbelief. How could anyone dare to speak to Sun Qing in such a manner? Sun Qing's face turned ashen with rage. Within this hospital, aside from the director, no one had the audacity to openly slap him in the face. "If you do not provide me with an explanation today, I will ensure you are carried into the hospital on a stretcher," he bellowed. Chu Fan merely smiled, a grin reminiscent of a mocking ant challenging a colossal dragon, contemptuous, disdainful, utterly unconcerned. "Very well, I shall provide you with an explanation," he said, casting a cold glance at Sun Qing. In that instant, Sun Qing's complexion drained of color, and his body began to tremble uncontrollably. What sort of gaze was that? Indifferent, piercing, as lethal as a blade. In the next moment, Chu Fan fixed Sun Qing with a fierce glare. An invisible force surged into Sun Qing's eyes, prompting him to scream, "Ah, my eyes!" He clutched his face, blood trickling through his fingers. "Young Master Sun, what happened?" Sister Yan's expression shifted instantly as she rushed to support Sun Qing. Turning to a few nearby nurses, she commanded, "Quickly, take young Master Sun to the ophthalmology department." Then, pointing an accusatory finger at Chu Fan, she spat, "You're finished. If anything happens to young Master Sun's eyes, prepare to face imprisonment." Chu Fan remained unfazed, responding nonchalantly, "What does his blindness have to do with me? Did I lay a finger on him?" The head nurse found herself at a loss for words, her expression fluctuating as she regarded Chu Fan, unable to articulate a response. Indeed, it was baffling. Neither had laid a hand upon the other, yet Sun Qing's eyes were already in peril. With a slight smile, Chu Fan approached the head nurse, retrieving several bundles of cash from his bag. "This is 300,000. Can it secure my father's transfer back to a superior ward?" 300,000. The head nurse felt dizzy once more. Suddenly, as if recalling something, her face paled. "It's you." "Indeed, it is I," Chu Fan replied with a gentle smile. "If anything were to happen to my father while he lies in the corridor, I would ensure you become a vegetable." The head nurse shivered inexplicably, dread rising within her. Despite Chu Fan's smile, she had no doubt that should his father encounter any issues, he would indeed make her a vegetable. In a rush, the head nurse instructed the other nurses, "Forget about the ophthalmology department for now. First, bring the gentleman from room 118 back to the superior ward." Only then did Chu Fan return to Chu Qian's side. She, puzzled, inquired, "What has happened with that person?" "Who knows?" Chu Fan replied dismissively, though a glimmer of sharpness flashed in his eyes. That invisible force had been a manifestation of sword intent. His cultivation was still insufficient, allowing him only to condense the most rudimentary form of sword intent. It was more than someone like Sun Qing could endure. As they entered the hospital, Feng Yao hurried after them, her expression anxious. "Benefactor, may I inquire your name? I will find a way to repay you for this money." However, under the watchful gaze of those around, Chu Fan spoke with a calm demeanor. "It is but a trifling matter. No need to repay the money. I hope both you and your mother are well." With that, he led Chu Qian into the elevator. Feng Yao stood dumbfounded, clutching the weighty sum of 100,000, her heart a tumult of emotions akin to a jar of mixed flavors overturned. In that moment, she felt an overwhelming impulse to dedicate herself entirely. "In this life, I shall marry no one but my benefactor." In the finest high-end ward of the city hospital, the Chu siblings stood abruptly. Before them lay an elderly man in a coma. He was not particularly old, merely in his 40s or 50s. Yet the passage of time had etched its marks upon his visage, his hair now flecked with gray. Chu Fan's expression was grave, while Chu Qian's eyes were red-rimmed, tears cascading down her cheeks. To them, this man held extraordinary significance. He was a loving father, a stern teacher, and the savior of Chu Qian's life. Without their father, Chu Qian would have perished from hunger, never entering the Chu family, and would not have met her brother. "Chu Fan, Brother, will Dad wake up? Chu Qian asked, her eyes glistening with tears. He will, Chu Fan replied, his fists clenched tightly, his gaze steely. Dad, rest assured. You will awaken. As for those in the Chu family, I shall not spare a single one. They will all face their reckoning. He had searched through the memories of the sword spirit, which contained numerous methods of cultivation, sword techniques, alchemy, and array formation. Yet none provided a means to awaken a person from a coma. After standing in silence for a long while, Chu Fan and Chu Qian left the ward. As they opened the door, they heard the sound of high heels clicking urgently against the floor. It was evident that the owner of the shoes was in a great hurry. Following the sound, Chu Fan noticed a doctor in a white coat, beneath which she wore a professional dress. Her alluring almond-shaped eyes were scanning the area anxiously, seemingly searching for something. Upon spotting Chu Fan in the corridor, her eyes brightened, and she swiftly approached him, seizing his wrist. Come with me. Chu Fan's expression turned cold, and Chu Qian, startled, hurriedly followed. Where are you taking my brother? The doctor, still gripping Chu Fan's hand, turned back with an apologetic expression. I'm sorry, little sister, but I need to borrow your brother for a moment. With a bang, she shut the door behind them and locked it. Chu Fan surveyed the stark white bed beside him and the peculiar array of test tubes and instruments. His demeanor indifferent. What do you intend to do with me here? The doctor appraised Chu Fan's figure with satisfaction, nodding approvingly. With her striking red lips parting, she uttered two captivating words, donate gold. Chapter 9. Infatuation. Woman? What a donate? Chu Fan stared in astonishment at the long-legged female doctor before him, doubting the accuracy of his hearing. The doctor, calm and composed, uttered the word with a hint of mischief in her eyes as she glanced toward his trousers. After confirming that he had not misheard, Chu Fan swallowed hard, feeling somewhat parched as he gazed at the strikingly attractive doctor. The door to the office was closed and locked. The lights were off, casting an obscured glow that made her features flicker in the dimness. She wore a lengthy white coat over a professional skirt suit. The hem was tantalizingly short, barely reaching her thighs, accentuating her long legs. What was even more striking were her fair thighs, clad in sheer nude stockings, adding an air of ethereal beauty. These legs could be played with for a decade. A solitary man and woman confined to the same room, with her asking him to donate. How could this scenario not lead to complications? Shaking himself from his stupor, Chu Fan took a step back, glancing at the name tag hanging from her neck. His expression earnest. Dr. Zhang Fengqing. Are you jesting? Do I seem like I'm joking? Zhang Fengqing shot him an incredulous look and gestured toward the white sheet beside her. Hurry up and lie down. Perhaps it was the allure of her captivating eyes that made Chu Fan perceive her glare not as a dismissal, but rather as an enticing invitation. His mouth grew drier, and even the sword spirit within him seemed to be stirred, pulsating with an ancient primal desire that clouded his mind, causing his eyes to take on a faint crimson hue. This is bad, the side effects are kicking in. Chu Fan's heart raced with alarm. The sword spirit bestowed upon him immense power, but it also required a cleansing of his darker impulses. At times like this, he felt an overwhelming urge to, especially towards Zhang Fengqing, whose very presence radiated seduction, further igniting his senses. His eyes gradually turned red, and his breathing became increasingly rapid. Zhang Fengqing furrowed her brow and inquired, Sir, are you all right? And nothing's wrong. Chu Fan's voice was hoarse, shaking his head vigorously as the blood-red hue in his eyes slowly faded, though his cultivation was still shallow, allowing him to maintain some semblance of rationality. He knew that as his power grew, there would come a day when he could no longer hold back. This state would significantly enhance his capabilities in that regard. Hence, he needed to prepare himself in advance. Really, nothing's wrong? Zhang Fengqing gazed at him with a hint of fear, puzzled as to why a mere blood donation could provoke such a dramatic response. However, seeing his current state, she decided against pressuring him further. We have a patient urgently seeking a donation, but our stock is depleted. You are the only young and robust man on this floor, so I had no choice but to approach you. If you are unwilling, then forget it. Only I am the young man on this floor. Chu Fan was taken aback. Upon reflection, he realized that during his time at the hospital, he had not encountered any other young male doctors. Instead, It was the female nurses and doctors who donned rather revealing attire. White dresses, white shoes, and white stockings, exuding an ambience reminiscent of hospitals in Japan. Your director certainly possesses a flair for playful elegance, clearly enjoying the allure of uniforms. Chu Fan chuckled awkwardly, shaking his head. However, the woman across from him, Zhang Fengqing, wore a dark expression as she remarked sternly, "I am the director." Upon hearing this, Chu Fan was instantly taken aback, his demeanor returning to normal as he widened his eyes in astonishment. This was a director? So young and beautiful? After gazing in disbelief for a considerable time, Chu Fan's lips twitched into a stiff smile. "My apologies. Could you perhaps refrain from dressing so enticingly? I fear I might lose control." Lose control? Zhang Fengqing blinked in surprise, then chuckled softly. "I wear this every day." Her words made Chu Fan's lips twitch again. He was earnest in his concern, yet she interpreted it as jest. He took a step back, genuinely worried about losing control over his primal instincts and succumbing to temptation. However, this movement intrigued Zhang Fengqing, who regarded him with curiosity. Typically, men who pursued her were numerous, clamoring for her attention. Yet this man seemed intent on maintaining his distance, as if she were a ferocious beast. "Hey, why are you standing so far away?" Zhang Fengqing furrowed her beautifully shaped brows, her enchanting eyes fixated on him. Chu Fan's retreat only piqued her interest further. "Don't come any closer," he gasped, a grimace crossing his face as he retreated again. "I intend to approach." Zhang Fengqing stepped forward, her expression tinged with displeasure. She had encountered many men who feigned aloofness merely to capture her interest. Yet this man genuinely seemed disinclined to engage. Having been admired for her beauty throughout her life, she had never encountered someone like him. "Miss Zhang, Dr. Zhang, I must insist, your attire is too captivating. I fear I may lose my composure." Chu Fan felt a chill run down his spine, attempting to retreat further, only to find himself cornered against the wall with no escape. Zhang Fengqing's surprise deepened as she instinctively glanced at her own attire. Clad in a white lab coat, a white shirt, a short skirt, and stockings, she saw nothing amiss. Her expression grew increasingly enigmatic, her alluring eyes sparkling as she smirked. "Oh, I see. Are you afraid of me?" Chu Fan remained silent, his face rigid with discomfort. While others might leap at the chance to approach a beauty, he found himself evading her like one would a ferocious beast. Was she playing with fire? "Is it because I am too beautiful?" Zhang Fengqing swayed her petite waist, her voice dripping with charm as she stepped closer to Chu Fan, one hand resting against the wall. With a sudden thud, as she leaned in, Chu Fan's heart raced violently. Was there truly a day he would experience such an encounter with a woman? Taking a deep breath, he held his breath and instinctively recoiled. "Dr. Zhang, please maintain your decorum," he gasped. Before he could finish his words, Chu Fan inhaled sharply. Before him, Zhang Fengqing had surprisingly shed her white coat. Gulp! His throat involuntarily constricted again, and the restless sword spirit trembled within him, as his eyes, which had just returned to normal, were now subtly hinting at a return to crimson. Just moments ago, he was concerned about the patient's condition, but now, seeing her made his worries dissipate. With a beaming smile, Zhang Fengqing appeared enchanting. Yet Chu Fan felt a chill run down his spine. "Let's set aside the matter of your donation for now. Come with me to see the patient first, and then you can reconsider," he insisted. "My sister is waiting outside." My eyes. Chu Fan had initially intended to use his sister as an excuse to refuse, but when he saw Zhang Fengqing suddenly raise her leg, he instinctively covered his eyes. Indeed, pink suited her even better. Zhang Fengqing's cheeks flushed as she furrowed her delicate brows, saying, "If you refuse, I shall cast a spell on you right here, and I will call for help to see who prevails." Upon hearing this, Chu Fan's expression darkened. He was unflinching when it came to killing, yet at this moment, he felt powerless. He feared nothing, save for a beautiful woman playing tricks on him. "Fine, I will go with you, but please, no more skirts. I beg you." Chu Fan gritted his teeth. That's more like it," she giggled sweetly, quickly donning her white coat. Chu Fan stood there, momentarily stunned. Her speed in changing clothes was quite extraordinary. Zhang Fengqing raised an eyebrow. "So why are you still standing there? Should I change in front of you?" Chu Fan's lips twitched as he hurriedly turned around, preparing to exit. Just before opening the door, he abruptly turned back. "Dr. Jean, I think you should take a moment to groom yourself. There's one hair sticking out." After saying this, a sense of revenge welled up within him, and he rushed out. Jean Fengqing remained momentarily frozen, unsure of what he was referring to, and instinctively looked down, her face instantly flushing as she stamped her foot in frustration. Pervert. 5 minutes later, Jean Fengqing emerged in trousers. Although her figure remained splendid, the impact was not as striking as before, though her cheeks were still flushed. Chu Fan wore a faint, smug smile, choosing to remain silent. Chu Qin glanced between Jean Fengqing and Chu Fan, her brows furrowing. "Brother, what were you two just doing?" "Nothing much, just having conversation." "Chu Fan zipli akwadili." "A conversation, you say? You talk while I listen. Nothing wrong with that." Leaving Chu Qin outside, Chu Fan and Jean Fengqing entered the gynecology department. Upon entering, Chu Fan noticed several pure and beautiful nurses casting surprised glances at them. Jean Fengqing, however, remained unfazed. Pointing to a woman lying on the hospital bed, she said to Chu Fan, "There's the patient." Chu Fan replied indifferently. As he approached and beheld the woman, a hint of astonishment flickered in his eyes. The woman, in her 30s, was strikingly beautiful, with a beauty mark just below her mouth. Dressed impeccably in a neat blazer, she exuded the aura of a successful individual. Her beauty was unlike Jean Fengqing's charm or Su Bingxin's cold elegance. How to describe it? It radiated a maternal glow. Jean Fengqing chuckled and inquired, "What do you think? Are you intrigued?" Chu Fan remained silent, his gaze flickering as he scrutinized the woman before him, his brow furrowed in contemplation. Jean Fengqing then turned her attention back to the woman, smiling as she asked, "Ms. Tang, what is your perspective?" Ms. Tang assessed Chu Fan, noticing his agreeable appearance, and nodded in affirmation. "As long as you agree to donate, the price is not an issue." "No need," Chu Fan replied coolly, casting a fleeting glance her way. "Your body is not the problem." "What? That's impossible." Ms. Tang's voice escalated by an octave upon hearing this. "I have been here for examinations multiple times, and indeed I am infertile." Jean Fengqing frowned slightly, interjecting, "Hey, you're not a doctor, so refrain from making unfounded statements. This is based on comprehensive examinations. While the machine's results are accurate, they merely reflect an illusion." Chu Fan stated with an air of calm. The reason for her diagnosed infertility stems from having been drugged the day before the examination. "Ms. Tang, do you often experience dizziness at night, subsequently retiring early?" "How do you know?" Ms. Tang gasped, her eyes widening in disbelief as she looked at Chu Fan. Chu Fan merely smiled, remaining silent, though his expression gradually deepened into seriousness. The residual effects of the drug were perceptible to his spiritual senses. Yet there remained an unspoken truth. That was on the night she was incapacitated, the same drug forcibly administered to her by Yumeiyun was indeed the same substance.